You know what the Netflix homepage does that genuinely drives me insane? It shows you the same 6 rows of content on a loop. The trending stuff, the Netflix originals, the algorithmically because you watched suggestions that are somehow always wrong. And meanwhile, sitting in the licensed catalog, buried under all of that, are films that won Oscars. Films that were box office hits. Films with some of the biggest actors on the planet. Just sitting there. No banner, no push notification, nothing. I've done the scrolling. 15 films, all currently available, all genuinely excellent, that span war epics, heist thrillers, sci-fi, biopics, comedies, and one erotic thriller that has absolutely no business being this entertaining. And number 1 on this list, a true story about a man who refused to carry a weapon into one of the bloodiest battles of the Second World War and saved 75 lives anyway. 15 films. Ranked. Let's go. Number 15. Wild Things. Right, let's start with something completely different. A high school guidance counselor. 2 students who accuse him of sexual assault. A detective trying to work out what actually happened. And, over the course of 98 minutes, roughly 4 separate moments where the entire premise of the film gets pulled out from under you. Wild Things stars Matt Dillon, Kevin Bacon, Neve Campbell, and Denise Richards, and it has developed over the last 25 years a very specific reputation. Critics dismissed it on release, audiences loved it, and it has slowly become one of the most quietly beloved erotic thrillers of the 90s. Here's why it works. The film knows exactly what it is. It is not pretending to be prestige cinema. It is a glossy, twisty, Florida-soaked thriller that keeps adding layers of deception right up until the credits. And it has fun doing it. Kevin Bacon's performance as the detective is doing more work than the film gets credit for. A genuinely strange, off-kilter turn that keeps you uncertain about him for the entire runtime. Not a masterpiece. Not trying to be. 90 minutes of pure, well-constructed 90s trash with a twist ending that actually holds up. Sometimes, that's exactly what you want. Number 14. Passengers.
Something's wrong. Something big.
I need to be honest about this one's reputation, because it's complicated, and I think the reputation is partly wrong. Jim Preston, played by Chris Pratt, wakes up alone on a colony ship traveling to a distant planet. He was supposed to be in hibernation for the entire 90-year journey, along with everyone else on board. Something went wrong. He's awake decades early, with no way to go back to sleep, and no way to reach anyone. He is, for all practical purposes, completely alone, except for an android bartender, played by Michael Sheen, and the thousands of sleeping passengers around him. And then there's Aurora, played by Jennifer Lawrence. And what Jim does next is the reason this film became controversial on release. A choice the film is genuinely interested in interrogating, even if the marketing sold it as a straightforward romance. The visuals are extraordinary. One of the most striking-looking science fiction films of the last decade. And underneath the romance plot is a genuinely uncomfortable moral question that the film doesn't fully resolve, but doesn't entirely ignore either. Pratt and Lawrence have real chemistry. The visuals alone are worth the watch, and the moral complexity, whether you think the film handles it well or not, gives you something to actually discuss afterwards, which is more than most films in this genre attempt. Go in with an open mind. You might be surprised. Number 13. The Good Shepherd. Robert De Niro directed this. Matt Damon and Angelina Jolie star, and it is one of the coldest, most controlled spy films ever made. A film that asks you to sit with the emotional vacancy of its central character for nearly 3 hours, and somehow makes that vacancy the entire point. Matt Damon plays Edward Wilson, a founding member of the CIA, tracked across decades, from his recruitment at Yale through World War II and into the earliest days of the Cold War. The film moves between timelines, showing Wilson's personal life, his marriage, his son, slowly hollowing out as his professional life consumes everything around it. What The Good Shepherd is really about is the cost of secrecy as a way of life. Wilson cannot tell his wife what he does, cannot tell his son, cannot eventually really tell himself anything that isn't filtered through suspicion and compartmentalization. This is a slow film. Deliberately so. De Niro is not interested in spy movie thrills. He's interested in what 30 years of institutional paranoia does to a human being from the inside. It received mixed reviews on release, in part because audiences expected something faster. Revisited now, it's one of the most quietly devastating character studies of the 2000s. It's not for everyone, but if you're a patient viewer, this film delivers. Number 12. Pitch Black. Before Vin Diesel was driving cars through buildings, he was doing this. And honestly, this might be better. A transport ship crashes on a remote planet. The survivors include a dangerous prisoner named Riddick, a small crew, and a teenager hiding a secret. The planet has 3 suns, and the planet has something else too. Something that only comes out when all 3 suns set at once. David Twohy directed Pitch Black on a relatively modest budget, and what he builds is a creature feature that understands the most valuable resource in horror: darkness itself. Once the eclipse begins and the planet goes black, the film becomes almost unbearably tense. Vin Diesel's performance as Riddick, that voice, that stillness, the constant ambiguity about whether he's a threat to the survivors or their best chance of staying alive, launched an entire franchise from this single film. It's lean. It's mean. It's 89 minutes of pure survival horror with a sci-fi backbone, and it never once overstays its welcome. If you've only seen the later Riddick films, go back to where it started. This is actually the good one. Number 11. Deepwater Horizon.
Daddy, you need to get me a fossil.
Oh, yeah.
I will.
I want to be able to hold it up and say my daddy tames the dinosaurs.
Mark Wahlberg, Kurt Russell. A true story about the Deepwater Horizon oil rig disaster of 2010, the explosion that killed 11 workers and caused the largest marine oil spill in U.S. history. Peter Berg directed this, and what he made is structurally almost a horror film. The first half of Deepwater Horizon is spent on the rig with the workers, as small decisions get made. Corners cut, warnings dismissed, pressure from executives to move faster, and you can feel the disaster coming before anyone on screen can. And then it happens. Whew. And the second half of this film is one of the most genuinely terrifying disaster sequences ever filmed. Fire, explosions, men trapped on a structure that is collapsing into the ocean beneath them. Practical effects, real-scale sets, built specifically for this film, and it's outstanding. What makes it more than just a disaster movie is that it never lets you forget these are real people. This really happened, and 11 of them didn't make it home. Kurt Russell, as the rig's manager, gives one of his best performances in years. Genuinely terrifying, genuinely moving, and far better made than most disaster films ever attempt to be. And before I get to number 10, I want to say something about where this list is heading. The next 5 entries are where this list begins to operate at a completely different level of craft. Number 7 in particular, a forensic pathologist, a discovery nobody in Power wanted made, and a fight that cost him almost everything. Will Smith, one of his finest performances. Keep watching. Number 10. Side effects.
911, what's your emergency? I need help!
Someone's been murdered.
Steven Soderbergh said this was his last film. He retired after it. Then he came back, which is fair enough, but he went out, briefly, with this. Rooney Mara plays Emily, a woman whose husband has just been released after 4 years in prison for insider trading. She's been struggling with depression. Her psychiatrist prescribes a new experimental drug. And then something happens. Something the film calls a side effect. Here's what I love about side effects. It opens as one kind of film, a meditation on the pharmaceutical industry, the way doctors become mouthpieces for drug companies, the way vulnerable people get caught between profit and care. And then it pivots and becomes something completely different. And then that thing pivots again. Jude Law plays the psychiatrist. Catherine Zeta-Jones plays a former therapist. The cast is doing their best work, especially Mara, who manages to be both completely sympathetic and deeply, masterfully unreadable. Critics called it a postmodern Hitchcock thriller, which is accurate, but what it actually is 2 hours of being played like a fiddle by a master filmmaker who knows exactly which string to pull and when. Seriously underrated, seriously sharp. Don't miss it. Number 9. The Founder.
Sky's the limit.
You have a contract. This is not your company, Ray.
You sure about that?
Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, and if you think you know the McDonald's story, you almost certainly know the sanitized version. In the 1950s, Kroc was a struggling salesman who came across a small burger restaurant in California run by two brothers, Dick and Mac McDonald, who had perfected an assembly line system for fast food. Kroc saw the potential immediately. The brothers wanted to keep it small. Kroc did not. What follows is one of the most quietly ruthless business stories ever put on film, and Keaton plays it perfectly. Kroc starts the film as an underdog you root for, a man who's failed at everything, finally seeing an opportunity. And the film slowly, carefully, lets you watch that underdog become something else entirely. And I won't tell you what. John Carroll Lynch and Nick Offerman play the McDonald brothers, and their arc, from genuine inventors with a genuinely good idea to men who lose control of their own name, is the emotional spine the film never lets you forget. The Founder isn't interested in giving you a clean moral lesson. It's interested in showing you exactly how the American business success story actually works, and letting you decide for yourself what you think about that. Keaton is extraordinary. The ending is one of the coldest in recent memory. Number 8. American Hustle. David O. Russell assembled one of the best ensemble casts for this. Christian Bale, Amy Adams, Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Jeremy Renner, and gave all 5 of them roles big enough to actually use what they're capable of.
The way that you want to be treated. Didn't Jesus say that? Yeah, right. Also, always take a favor over money. I think Jesus said that as well.
But I don't know if he said the second one, but he might have said that.
Loosely based on the ab scam scandal of the late 1970s, American Hustle follows a con artist, his partner, and the FBI agent who blackmails them into helping run a sting operation on corrupt politicians. Loosely based is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The film opens by telling you, essentially, that some of this actually happened. What makes American Hustle so entertaining is that everyone in it is performing. Constantly. Bale's character is running a con. Adams' character is running a con on the person running the con. Cooper's FBI agent is so desperate for the bust that he's lying to his own superiors. Even Jennifer Lawrence's character, ostensibly the least involved, is manipulating everyone around her without anyone noticing. The film received 10 Oscar nominations, including nods for all 4 of its lead actors, a feat very few films achieve. Christian Bale's physical transformation, Amy Adams' accent work, Jennifer Lawrence's scene-stealing supporting turn, all of it holds up. A genuinely fun, genuinely sharp film about ambition, reinvention, and the specific American belief that you can become whoever you decide to be, as long as you're convincing enough. Number 7. Concussion.
I found a disease that no one has ever seen. Repetitive head trauma chokes the brain.
Will Smith plays Dr. Bennett, the Nigerian-American forensic pathologist who first identified CTE, the degenerative brain disease found in football players who suffered repeated head trauma, and then watched the NFL spend years trying to discredit him. Here's the thing about Concussion. This film should have been a massive deal. Will Smith gave one of the best performances of his career. A quiet, dignified, increasingly exhausted portrayal of a man who discovered something true and powerful institutions did not want to be true. And then, very quietly, the film mostly disappeared. There were widely reported claims that the studio softened the film's most damning material before release, under pressure connected to the NFL's broadcast relationships. Whether or not every detail of that story is accurate, the effect was the same. A genuinely important film got buried, and most people have never heard of it. The medical and emotional core of this film, the actual human cost of what happens to these players' brains, is handled with a seriousness that's rare for a major studio release. Quiet, powerful, and a film that more people really should see. Number 6. Inside Man.
Everybody get down on the fucking floor now! Get down on the ground! You have 4 seconds. Anyone still standing gets shot.
Spike Lee directing a heist thriller starring Denzel Washington, Clive Owen, and Jodie Foster. On paper, that's already a great Tuesday night. In practice, it's one of the smartest heist films of the 2000s, and one that almost nobody talks about anymore. A bank in Manhattan, a meticulously planned robbery, a hostage negotiator, played by Denzel Washington, who slowly realizes that nothing about this robbery is what it appears to be. What Inside Man does better than almost any heist film of its era is patience. Clive Owen's character is calm, controlled, and clearly working towards something specific. And the film takes its time letting you understand what that actually is, layering in flashbacks and parallel timelines that only click into place in the final act. Jodie Foster plays a fixer, a woman who solves problems for powerful people, for a price. And she brings a coldness to the role that makes every scene she's in feel like it's about something bigger than the bank. Denzel and Spike Lee made several films together. This is one of the most purely entertaining and one of the most overlooked. A genuinely satisfying twist. A cast operating at the top of their game. And 90 seconds at the very end that recontextualize everything that came before. Number 5. Atonement. Based on Ian McEwan's novel, directed by Joe Wright, and built around a single misunderstanding, a moment that destroys multiple lives across decades.
You saw him?
Yes, I saw him. I know it was him.
You know it was him?
I saw him with my own eyes.
I love you. Come back to me.
Keira Knightley and James McAvoy play Cecilia and Robbie, two people from different classes falling in love, on the cusp of everything going wrong. Saoirse Ronan plays Bryony, Cecilia's younger sister, whose misreading of a single moment sets off consequences that neither she nor anyone else can ever undo. What Atonement does so devastatingly well is structure. The first act, the country house, the heat, the slow build towards the moment everything changes, is some of the most beautifully shot filmmaking of the 2000s. Saoirse Ronan was 13 when she made this and received an Oscar nomination for it, entirely deserved. The way she plays Bryony, a child whose imagination and certainty cause irreparable harm, sets up everything the film does in its final act. And the final act? I will say only this. Atonement has one of the most quietly devastating final 20 minutes of any film of its decade. It recontextualizes everything you've watched, and it does so with a gentleness that makes it hurt more, not less. Have tissues nearby. You'll need them. Number 4. Cinderella Man. Russell Crowe. Renee Zellweger. Paul Giamatti. Ron Howard directing. And one of the most purely emotional sports films of the 2000s that somehow never gets mentioned alongside films like Rocky, despite, frankly, deserving to be.
He's old. He's arthritic.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. It's over. Go home to me and the kids, Jim.
Go home with what? Go home with what?
James J. Braddock was a real boxer. Washed up, broke, working on the docks during the Great Depression because boxing wasn't paying the bills and his family needed to eat. And then, almost by accident, he gets one more shot. And he takes it. And then another. And the losing streak that ended his career becomes, against every possible expectation, a winning streak that turns him into a symbol for an entire country going through the worst economic period in its history. Russell Crowe is doing genuinely physical, committed work here. But the film's secret weapon is Paul Giamatti as Braddock's manager, who received an Oscar nomination for a performance built almost entirely on loyalty and exhaustion. What makes Cinderella Man work isn't really the boxing, though the fight sequences are excellent. It's the stakes underneath the boxing. Every punch Braddock takes is connected to rent, to food, to his children. The film makes you feel the depression in a way that most films about the era don't manage, because it ties the history directly to one family's survival. A genuinely moving film. Underseen for a Ron Howard-Russell Crowe collaboration of this quality. Fix that tonight. Number 3. Wind River.
Sheriff's office.
I need emergency assistance.
What's your location?
The Wind River Indian Reservation.
Wind River is about the murder of a young Native American woman on a reservation in Wyoming in the dead of winter. Jeremy Renner plays a wildlife tracker. Elizabeth Olsen plays an FBI agent. And together, they move through a landscape so brutally indifferently cold that the cold itself becomes a character. Taylor Sheridan wrote and directed this. The same man behind Sicario and Hell or High Water, and it has the same moral gravity as both of those. No clean answers, no hero's catharsis. Just people in a broken system trying to find something like justice in a place the system has largely abandoned. The final act is among the finest Sheridan has written, and there's a speech near the end, delivered quietly to no one in particular, that I thought about many times since I watched it. 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, one of the best films of 2017. More people should know it. Number 2, The Big Lebowski. After all of that, here's a film that doesn't care about plot, doesn't care about stakes, and has become one of the most quoted, most beloved comedies ever made, almost entirely because of that fact. Jeff Bridges plays the dude, a man whose rug gets urinated on by mistake, which sets off a chain of events involving a kidnapping, $1 million, a porn producer, and a group of nihilists. Sort of. The plot is, by design, almost impossible to summarize, because the Coen brothers were never interested in the plot being the point. What The Big Lebowski is actually about is the dude himself, a man so completely unbothered by the chaos around him that he becomes, almost by accident, one of cinema's great comic heroes. John Goodman as Walter, volatile and Vietnam-obsessed. Steve Buscemi as Donnie, perpetually ignored. Julianne Moore in a performance so committed to its own strangeness that it's still being discussed 25 years later. This film was not a hit on release. Reviews were mixed. And then, slowly, over years, it became something else entirely. A film people quote daily without realizing they're quoting it. A film with its own festivals, its own religion, its own devoted following that calls itself dudism. If you've never understood the obsession, this is genuinely the moment to find out. Just don't expect it to explain itself. That's not what it's for. Number 1, Hacksaw Ridge. Mel Gibson directed this, and whatever your feelings about Gibson, what he made here is genuinely one of the best war films of the last 20 years.
While everybody else is taking life, I'm gonna be saving it. And that's gonna be my way to serve.
Andrew Garfield plays Desmond Doss, a real American soldier during World War II who refused to carry a weapon on religious grounds, and was sent into one of the most brutal battles of the Pacific Theater anyway, as a medic, unarmed. The first half of this film is fairly conventional, a young man's faith tested by a military system that doesn't understand him. The second half is some of the most visceral, unrelenting combat filmmaking ever committed to screen. And here's what makes it extraordinary. In the middle of all of it, the chaos, the carnage, men being torn apart around him, Doss goes back, again, and again, unarmed, to pull wounded men out, one at a time, under fire, because he made a promise to himself that he would never carry a gun and never abandon someone who needed him. He saved 75 men this way. This actually happened. Andrew Garfield was nominated for an Oscar. The film won too, and it's a story about courage that doesn't look anything like the courage you're used to seeing in war films. This is not an easy watch. It is an extraordinary one. A true story so remarkable that if it were fiction, you'd say it was too much. Hacksaw Ridge is simply one of the best war films of the last 20 years, and it's sitting on Netflix right now, mostly unwatched. This is the one. That's the end of today's list. 15 films, all of them on Netflix right now. Start with Inside Man if you want a smart, tightly wound thriller. Start with The Big Lebowski if you want to laugh until it hurts. Start with Wind River if you want a film that's going to sit with you for days. Drop a comment with which one you're watching first. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here at CineEdge, we're always searching for the very best movies and TV shows, so you never run out of something amazing to watch. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.